Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, I've been thinking about this topic a lot, about feminism, about anti-feminism, and I noticed that there's this one big theme that seems to come out a lot, especially with the anti-feminists and this kind of anti-woman in a sense, where there's an assertion that um, women tend to marry or look for mates that are wealthy and um, sort of higher up on the social uh, class, in social class, or higher in the career ladder and so on. And they call this hypergamy. Okay, so there's all these videos on YouTube going around about the hypergamous woman and how women are just after your money and just kind of like in it for themselves. And basically what I'm saying is, so what? That comes from centuries of genetic material, centuries of breeding, from a situation where the only thing that guaranteed a woman's survival often was the ability of her men, or the men in her life to look after her. So that's just the way it has always been. And so why should it be any different now? Okay, so that's what I want to talk about. Why should it be any different now? Why do you have this hypergamous woman kind of syndrome, if I can call it a syndrome, not that I'm saying it's a disease, and why should it be any different now? Okay, right. So we got to remember that only up until recently, with improvements in technology, are women more able to generate high incomes for themselves, and work, in various fields, because basically the job market and the kinds of jobs have evolved over the centuries, and especially in the recent century, from sort of manual labor, hard labor, to soft skills. So the economy has changed, has evolved. And so you get a lot of jobs that require sitting behind a desk, and doing soft skills, working on a computer. So the element of danger, of course, has been removed from many of these types of jobs, which are more suitable, therefore, and more sort of by choice, something that women would go for. And why is that significant? Well, because frankly, women are the carriers of the species, the human species. And because they are the carriers of the human species, they are more important than men. It sounds kind of, I'm saying I'm a man sitting here and I'm saying women are more important. Like, what's wrong with this guy, right? Well, in terms of biology, it's just a fact, okay? Throughout the animal kingdom, the carrier of a species is more important than the one who just donates his, I don't know, his seed, right? The one who donates his seed. So men, in a sense, donate their seed to women who carry the species. Now, at a biological level, technically, you could kill off half the male population tomorrow, and with the surplus woman available and the decreased amounts of men, you could still perpetuate the human species, simply because it's quite plausible for one man to impregnate several women. But it's not possible the other way around. So you cannot, uh, a woman that has several mates still can only fall pregnant once within the 9 month period. The period of gestation, she'll give birth once. So her productivity rate in terms of, her sleeping with several men, on a sort of biological scale, kind of becomes useless. Like, why would a woman, if a woman sleeps with several men, she can still only fall pregnant one time and give birth once every 9 months. Whereas a man, he could sleep with several women and impregnate, like, I don't know, 100 women in a year or 200 women in a year, or what, depends on how capable he is as a man, but it's possible. So basically, what you're seeing is that women are more valuable. It's as simple as that. You could have a group of men, 3-4 men left in the world, very happy men, of course, who could basically, over a period of time impregnate, a whole population of women and still perpetuate the species. It can't be one man, of course, because then the offspring would be brothers and sisters, and it would cause a degeneration of the genes and a low survival rate, like that of the pharaohs, for example, who had experienced that through practicing incest. So we're not talking about that. But anyway, the point is, hypergamy is important because women have experienced a situation throughout history that makes them vulnerable. Firstly, the consequence of sex. Okay, so if you're gonna choose a mate in a man and he's going to sleep with the woman, the natural consequence of sex, obviously, and it sounds kind of like dumb to state it, but in these days, this is not always the natural consequence of sex. Of course, advances again in technology and contraception was not there, okay, for hundreds of years. And so the woman has to think about the consequences of having children down the line. So she's not thinking like a man, where he's thinking, okay, this is an attractive woman, I want to sleep with her, and that's that. Okay, a woman did not have the luxury of thinking in that way. Okay, for the vast majority of human history, this was not the way they thought. Okay, they had to think about the man being capable of looking after and fathering the very great possibility of offspring. And that required them to be very selective regarding who they mate with, and to have a whole host of considerations, one of which is protection. Can this man protect me? Is he strong? And can this man hunt for me? Is he capable? So these are kinds of, hard coded in our genes. And women have been this way for thousands of years. And it's just not going to change now, because modern society has evolved new technologies whereby women are arguably less vulnerable. Right. So that's the one thing. And so I'm just basically telling you guys that hypergamy isn't a bad thing. A woman's gotta look at things in a way that would be beneficial for her in the long run. An emotional a deeply emotional sexual relationship with a guy um, does impact her in greater ways often than it would him, because she's the carrier of the species. So this is kind of where this comes from. Now, there's a big difference between a woman looking out for herself because of her genetic makeup and her history, and a woman being materialistic. And I think that's kind of where we need to draw the line as men. Yes, women do look at how successful you are as a man, because it's an indication of your ability to look after her and whatever offspring might come from the relationship, on the one hand. On the other hand, you do get women that are just gold diggers. You do get women that are trying to enrich themselves through a relationship, through a marriage, and then benefit unfairly from the wealth of another person, from the man who has worked hard for what he's accomplished. So there is that aspect also, okay? And it especially becomes more crucial when men are not given traditional men rights, okay? Traditional rights that have been attributed to men for centuries. Because while I'm arguing on the one hand and I'm saying hypergamy is fine, I'm saying women should and can look out for themselves in that way. At the same time, it would not make sense for me to say that if I'm also saying, hooray, feminism, you know, men are, you don't need to consult men in the decisions you make. Men are not the head of their households. Women can act with total autonomy. And if I was saying those things, then I should not be saying that hypergamy is fine. So what I'm basically saying is we got to balance it out, okay? Yes, women do look out for their best interests. That's fine, on the one hand. On the other hand, men should be respected as the head of their homes, their households, and women should not, therefore, be seen as having complete autonomy in this type of model. Okay, so you have this model. You could accept the traditional model and accept the hypergamous woman, okay, and see the centuries of history that has established that model, not because men wanted to oppress women or just have the upper hand, but for the survival of the species. Okay, so like makes sense up to that point. However, now in modern society, let's get to modern society. Fast forward, in this generation, women have jobs, often earn more than men. Men are not the sole providers anymore. In many families, you have what we call dual income homes. Women work, men work, and they share responsibilities, okay? Now, when things have shifted in that direction, the dynamic has also changed. Men are no longer solely in charge of providing for women, okay? Societies have also gotten safer. There are less dangers involved in women moving about by themselves, women outside the home. Advances in contraception, it's no longer feared, at least not to the same extent, that the result of having a sexual relationship will be falling pregnant. So that has changed. And then also when women have their haid, their period, they are still capable of moving around. They don't have to stay indoors as in the past, because advances in that technology also, pads and tampons and these things. So the dynamic has changed, the social dynamic has changed, and with it, obviously, traditional rules invariably has evolved, um, as you know, with the need of the time, of course. And so when you look at it in this context, the problem we are facing and the problem why these men are so disgruntled with hypergamy and hypergamous women, is that women are often, at least in some of societies, women are no longer dependent. Okay? For most of human history, women were dependents of men, and that is no longer the case. And so, why should a woman who earns more a lot of the time than men or men of her peers demand the same type of demands that women in previous societies or dependent women needed by necessity of nature, basically, and the way the social structure worked, demanded. Okay, so again, is it feasible for women to demand exactly the same stuff they demanded in the past, given that in the past they were dependents and now many women are independent? Okay? And so this is kind of what gets men disgruntled, okay? Because it's perfectly feasible that a woman looks out for herself in those particular ways by trying to marry up, by trying to marry a man who's highly successful, who has money, who's got his shit in order, because ultimately, when she marries him, he's responsible for her, for taking care of her, and he's also going to be an authority over her, and he's going to regulate her movement even, okay? And what she, needs to do, she's going to stand behind him, in other words, because he's protecting her. So it's perfectly understandable that she would be looking out for all those things, because it's a major decision that's going to that is going to affect the rest of her life. But not only that, it's basically like a long-term investment. Okay, she's giving this man herself, basically. So that was kind of the equation that she was looking at, and so therefore all those things made sense. But what about now? What about now? What about the woman that isn't looking for the long-term investment? What about the woman that's just gonna be around for a little while, for example? Okay, what's her excuse? Why is this significant or important to her? Why does she need to be looking out for all these things? Okay, she doesn't want to have kids, maybe. She just wants to have a little bit of fun. She's just looking for some relationship, someone who would spoil her a little bit and take her out a little bit and all these types of things. But she's not really interested in committing. And I think this is where the disgruntledness comes in, Men feel that, look, you want me to be the traditional man, to pay for your stuff, to look after you financially, but you don't want to be the traditional woman. You are not making that commitment, that level of commitment, and you are not sort of invested in having a family or anything of that nature with me. Why should I have to do all these things for you? Okay? Especially in light of the fact that you can bloody well do these things for yourself. And so I think that's kind of where the the dilemma comes in, okay? The equation has changed, and the traditions have not caught up, basically, okay? So at this juncture, we kind of have two options. One is we can revert back to tradition, meaning we can insist that women be homemakers, that they stay at home, that men are the breadwinners, and have sort of a male-driven economy. Or we can not go back to the traditional sort of patriarchal model and look at a new model, which allows women the freedoms that they now have, but starts settling on some responsibilities. And I think it's by time we do that, so that the situation is more fair, especially in light of what men are going through, in our time. So yes, so what I'm saying is, okay, women work, okay? They earn money, right? Why should their money count for nothing? Because basically that's what we're saying a lot of the time. We're saying that the money of the woman counts for nothing because it's actually his money that must look after her. Okay, so I'm saying, look, if you're gonna have the opportunity to pursue jobs and careers and earn your own money, then your money has got to count for something. Okay, so you would be financially liable also as a human being. Okay, forget about being a woman. You will be financially liable as a human being. Okay, the obligation of maintenance will fall on you as a financially capable person. That is because as a human being earning money, the same way as a man has done for centuries, and the same way that men continue to do in many societies, you would be held equally liable, basically. Because now we're talking about equality. This is the point. Now we're talking about equality. Because the thing is, the thing that annoys me, basically, is that on the one hand, women, when it comes to competing with men, when it comes to doing things men do, or the domains that were historically male domains, they talk about equality, okay? Women can do all these things that men have historically done, and we are equal, if not better, of course. I mean, there's those women that obviously are going for better rather than equal, right? But then when it comes to their being woman, they are suddenly required or want to retain all the traditional rights that women have had over the centuries, okay? So there's this double standard that's ongoing, okay, and that persists, is that when it's convenient, you can invoke the fact that you're a woman. I'm a woman, okay? I should be protected. I should be looked after, I should be pampered. Open the door for me. I'm a woman, right? Some women died, by the way. They don't like you to open doors for them, right? Nowadays, you don't even know what the hell you should do. Should you open the door? Shouldn't you open the door, And most men are like, fuck it. We forget about it. Anyway, the point is, this double standard exists. We don't know half the time whether we're coming or going as men, okay? We don't know. Because we don't know at which point we should play into your idea of independence, okay? And at which point we should revert back to patriarchy. We should revert back to privileging you as a woman, because that's what you were under patriarchy. You were privileged. Should we go back to privileging you as a woman and treating you as a woman under traditional norms. So we don't know what to do. Half the time we don't know whether we're coming or going. Okay? Because ultimately you're saying you want both. You know? You're saying you want both, and having both is basically an impossibility. Not only an impossibility, when you strive for that, it's basically an injustice. It's an injustice to men. And so, because you are basically claiming the upper hand in all spheres. And what this leads to further, ladies, and what you got to realize is that when you disempower the men in your community, in your society, okay, nobody benefits. Nobody benefits. Okay? You think you benefit because you're occupying more of the jobs. You think you benefit because you're getting half of the money or more. You think you benefit because you're asserting girl power, you know? But actually nobody benefits in the society, because the society is made up of men, unless you want to kill all the men, you know, which you can do. You kill most of the men, leave me and a few other men behind, and you know, we can do our job. But the point is, don't think that you're benefiting, because you're not. Okay, what happens is you're creating a society, ladies, of men who are disenfranchised, who have a very, very strong male identity crisis, because there is nothing unique or specific to men intrinsically, okay? Men are defined by the roles that they play, whereas women are defined by biological function, okay? A woman is a woman because she can give birth, okay? That's it. A man isn't a man because he can copulate, okay? This is not what defines male characteristics or male function. Men are not defined by what they are intrinsically capable of, but rather they are defined by what they can do, okay? And so when you flood what was historically male domains with women, okay, then men no longer feel like they have a place in society as men. You demasculate them, okay? Is it demasculate? Emasculate, sorry. You emasculate them, okay? And then they develop this identity crisis. Men want to be men, you know? Men want to be something that is exclusively and uniquely male. They want to associate with things that are exclusively and uniquely male. And the more you conquer those domains, the less men can call something uniquely male, because now everything a man can do, a woman can do, basically. Okay, there is nothing uniquely male. And that's one of the reasons why, and this is for our next video, one of the reasons why I strongly advocate polygamy, because I still see polygamy as sort of the last line of defense. It is the last uniquely male phenomena, for, again, why I said from in the beginning of the video, it's a uniquely male phenomena because the ability of men to impregnate several women, you know, within the same time frame, and the ability of women to only fall pregnant once within that same time frame. And so this kind of then becomes a more distinguishing factor and sort of slowly starts to realign society, maleness, femaleness, and sort of help restore the balance. And that's for next time. I hope you enjoyed it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.